Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening. First tonight, basic human rights are being breached in Tasmania's prisons, according to a damning new report. The custodial inspector says prisons are being plunged into lockdown because there simply aren't enough staff.
Tensions in Tasmanian prisons have been well documented, but few reports are as alarming as the one released today.
This report tells us that one of the major drivers of lockdowns is understaffing in our prisons and overcrowding.
Tasmania's custodial inspector says the state is failing to meet the basic human rights of prisoners. Inmates are supposed to have at least 1 hour outside their cell each day, but that's not happening.
It's completely unacceptable that staff are put in a situation where, because of lack of resources and staff shortages, they have to lock inmates away in tiny cells for 24 hours a day.
More than 600 lockdowns occurred in our prisons in December alone, a third of them because of too few staff. In October, one unit was in lockdown for 6 out of 7 days. Tasmania's prison population has risen rapidly in recent years, prompting urgent calls for Corrections Minister Elise Archer to act.
It is appalling that Minister Archer would oversee a prison where people's human rights are being denied on a regular basis.
The government says it's recruited an extra 200 staff since 2016, but the review says 102 have left the system in the same time, and 70 currently have active workers' compensation claims.
What is important is that we've recruited more and more prison officers to get the job done, and it's been a tough challenge.
Unions say at least another 100 officers are needed.
Morale is incredibly low. What we want to see is a plan. Again, we have another report with the same issues and no action.
7 recommendations have been made in an attempt to improve conditions. The government says it will support all of them. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Convicted killer Jack Harrison Vincent Sadler is appealing his 32-year jail sentence, with his lawyers arguing the term is manifestly excessive. Last month, the 29-year-old was found guilty of murdering and dismembering Jake Anderson Bretner in Launceston in 2018. He is not appealing his murder conviction. The appeal is now expected to be heard in the Supreme Court. Environmentalists have lost a High Court bid to end native forest logging in Tasmania. The Bob Brown Foundation's attempt to appeal a federal court decision validating regional forest agreements was rejected this morning. Dubbed the Great Forest Case, the foundation argued the RFA contradicted federal laws and didn't protect endangered species. The government has welcomed the decision, while Bob Brown labelled it abysmal. A Tasmanian couple has been left heartbroken and unable to move into their dream home after a state government grant failed to be processed in time. The couple making desperate calls to the responsible department, with claims a backlog cost them their home.
After choosing fittings and watching her dream home in Perth be built, Brittany Goss has been left without a home.
Absolutely heartbroken. I always get really emotional talking about it. I drive past the house every day.
Brittany and her partner were eligible for state and federal grants for new builds, as well as funding for first home buyers. But when the grant didn't reach the solicitor's account by settlement date, the vendor backed out of the deal.
They've already signed up to a real estate to sell it on the market at the rough cost of approximately $450,000, meaning that it'll sell for approximately an extra $91,000 more than, was on our contract.
Pricing Brittany and her partner out of the property. Renters also facing challenges. Kane Capodici receiving a letter to say the rent on the public housing property he shares with his partner and 3 children will increase from $322 to $530 a fortnight from August.
I got out of my mailbox and I nearly broke into tears. It's going to really change a lot of things in my life, to be honest.
Nikki Riley is facing the same situation and is unsure if she can afford to continue living in the public home.
I've been in Rochelle for 7 years and I don't really want to have to move out of this area.
In a statement, Communities Tasmania says rental rates for public housing are reviewed every 6 months to reflect household income. Where a tenant's income has gone up, their rate of rent may increase.
In a Housing Tasmania property, your rent should be set at 25% of your income.
Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
It has been revealed Tasmania was on the brink of a COVID outbreak and there were stocks of PPE for frontline workers were well below recommended levels. An Auditor-General's report said while personal protective equipment was generally available at the beginning of the pandemic, stock levels and quality were not known due to record-keeping shortfalls. Agencies were eventually able to track down more PPE amid a global shortage and effectively manage their distribution.
All the agencies did quickly rectify those shortcomings around the stock controls at the beginning of the pandemic, and they quickly addressed those and implemented much stronger controls around that.
He made 4 recommendations to ensure better preparation in the future. New South Wales is at a flashpoint as authorities act to contain a COVID outbreak. Tourism operators here are bracing for the worst, with some already hit by cancellations.
A further 11 COVID cases announced in New South Wales as that outbreak threatens to boil over.
My level of concern is medium to high across New South Wales, but at the same time, the couple of things that we're pleased about is that all the new cases but one are linked.
Saying they're comfortable with the guidelines in place, the New South Wales government is yet to introduce a lockdown. Our government is yet to introduce a full border closure to the state.
There are concerning developments in Sydney and New South Wales, and more will be said about this in the very near future.
Having just survived a closure to Melbourne, for tourism operators it's a case of déjà vu.
Every time that we have a restriction come into place, we do see, a fair amount of cancellations. We're seeing that at the moment with Sydney.
The airport is expecting flight cancellations from the embattled city. One relief is soaring demand for the direct route to New Zealand.
The response has been great. We've had terrific forward bookings, particularly during the upcoming school holidays. And what this shows is that there really is genuine demand on both sides of the Tasman for these flights.
Hoping that an outbreak doesn't affect that route, the Health Department is urging the public to continue making bookings to receive the jab. In a statement today, saying they're expecting constant vaccine supply over the coming months. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian Labor MP Craig Farrell is recovering after a health scare on the job. Mr Farrell, who serves as President of the Upper House, was taken by paramedics from Parliament this afternoon.
He's currently being treated at hospital and we wish him all of the best. We hear that he's fine, but we really hope that he makes a quick recovery.
He's hoping to return to Parliament next week. At the height of the pandemic, the Cancer Council was forced to withdraw services from a Hobart clinic, but now, 1 year later, they've finally returned. That support for patients is more important than ever, with 9 Tasmanians receiving a cancer diagnosis each day.
A cancer diagnosis last October turned Alex Cullen's life upside down.
As I was getting ready for a hockey game last year, I found a really painful lump underneath my arm. At the point in time, I was concerned enough to book a doctor's appointment online straight away.
8 months later, she's almost in the clear, now on her last round of treatment, and she counts herself lucky her diagnosis came after the height of the pandemic.
Mum and my partner and my sister and my father all attended chemotherapy treatment with me. I couldn't imagine how difficult it would have been for people that didn't have that support going through.
Around 50 patients transit through Hobart's Icon Cancer Centre each day, but coronavirus meant many had to do so without as much support.
It's been a difficult journey through 2020.
With the Cancer Council forced to temporarily withdraw its service from the centre, now it's officially returned.
It's nice to have a familiar and friendly face on site for patients to connect with before and after treatment and at the early stages of their diagnosis.
Icon had to make sure that this centre was very safe for their clients and for the carers that come in. So we really work with Icon about when it was the right time for them.
On site 2.5 days a week.
So there's many different ways that they might find that support, whether it's a support group, whether it's a face-to-face support, it might be one of our complementary therapies.
Reducing barriers, helping people access support when they need it most. Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
The Tasmanian Transport Museum will reopen its doors after more than a year-long shutdown. The pandemic, followed by an insurance nightmare, almost saw the organisation close permanently.
Trains ground to a halt, stuck on the tracks but with nowhere to go.
The last 15 months have been horrid really, because we can't do what we like to do, and that's operate trains for the public.
For years, these trains have taken passengers on short historic trips along the heritage tracks, which it leases off Tasrail. But the Glenorchy Transport Museum was almost derailed last year. First, it was a COVID casualty, then another hit. Its running costs skyrocketed out of reach.
We had to have $200 million of public liability insurance, which was going to be roughly $176,000 compared to our $3,500 premium for $20 million.
Left on the brink of closure, it sought and was then denied government help. But after a nervous wait, a funding backflip got things back on track.
We had a phone call to say they've changed their mind. They are going to pay the subsidy that we requested.
This funding that's being provided will help to be able to support this industry and heritage rail around Tasmania.
Good news for advocates who campaigned for the museum's revival.
There was no real reason why it couldn't have happened sooner, but I am pleased that we are here nonetheless.
It's now hoped passengers will be on board in the next 3 weeks. Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
The war of words between Peter Gutwin and Tony Cochrane over Tassie's AFL future has escalated. Ahead of the Suns' trip to Tasmania this weekend, the Premier stuck his neck out in question time, challenging the Suns chairman to a goal-kicking contest.
A fearsome ex-footballer, the Premier today laid down the challenge to our state's fiercest critic.
There'll be a goal-kicking competition at half-time, during which I will be taking part, and I hope so will Mr Cochrane.
After disappointing AFL crowds in the state's south, he's urging fans to turn out in droves for the North Melbourne Gold Coast clash this weekend. If not to show support for the Roos, then to boo the Suns' boss, Tony Cochrane.
This weekend, when he is here at Blundstone, and I understand that he's coming, we as Tasmanians get the opportunity to show him firsthand our passion for the game.
It follows Cochrane reiterating his belief that the competition couldn't financially support a 19th club. I don't care whether that franchise is in Timbuktu, Tailem Bend or Tasmania. That is my point.
I'd love to see the opportunity for the state to have its own, and from a club perspective, we'd never stand in the way, of a Tassie team.
As for the match itself, David Noble says the Roos are looking to continue the improvement he's seen since the bye.
Our level of competitiveness, our energy in the first couple of weeks has been really high, been really consistent, and that's what we're chasing.
In an effort to boost crowd numbers, North Melbourne members in the state are receiving free tickets, while children will enter Blundstone Arena for free. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
North Hobart's playing coach will be truly sidelined this week. A knee square in Clinton French's back turned out to be far more damaging than initially thought. Clinton French knew something was up.
I had an MRI last Friday, and I actually had basically broken my back. So, yeah, a little fracture on my spine.
Opening the door to yet another Demons debutant, Jack Wilmot.
I just love the way he moves. He's got good height. He's a good user of the ball.
North Hobart faces a flattened Glenorchy, which copped a barrage of Blues goals.
In the last 14 minutes of the second quarter, we had 3 pressure acts. So we had 71 up to that point and then 3, and they kicked 6 goals.
Jay Blackberry's super snap was sentimental in his record-breaking outing, but nothing new to those who know the now games record holder.
There'd probably be only a handful of guys in the competition that could kick that goal, and Jay's one of them.
It's hard to radically change a Launceston side so hard to beat, but Thorpe is open to trying players in different roles.
We'll try and move the magnets around where we see fit and try and create some obstacles for the opposition to navigate around.
And a triple milestone at Evandale this weekend. 3 players in the Eagles women's side will notch up match number 50 on the same day. Among them, Ebony Vock, although 6-month-old son Vincent steals the spotlight.
Definitely a lady killer. All the girls love to see him after the games.
Charlotte Layton represents the club's longevity as a 4th-generation Evandale player.
Some of my family are life members, my great auntie, my grandfather.
While Jackie Harvey was part of the premiership winning side of 2018.
It's an image in my head that I just probably will never get rid of it. I even wore the medal to work the next day.
The 50 Gamers host Scottsdale at Evandale on Saturday. And the Tasmanian racing community is mourning the loss of Terry Rolls, who has succumbed to motor neuron disease. The Deloraine horse trainer had more than 600 career wins over 34 years and was a long-time volunteer with the Deloraine Football Club. His favourite horse, Inchgower, nicknamed Jim Bob, won 19 races. He was also an advocate for Fight MND and was personally invited by Neil Danaher to take part in a trial into the disease in 2019.
Good evening, Campania and Grove. Our high today with 17 degrees, Hobart 16 and Launceston 15, a bit cooler for Burnie and Devonport. Temperatures actually above average, Smithton, St Helens and Low Head 16, Strawn and the Islands 15, Bushy Park 14 and Lyawini 8 degrees. The north had the heavier cloud today. To 9 a.m, Pine Tree Rivulet had 52 millimetres of rain. Since 9 o'clock, the best fall, Low Head with 12 millimetres. A large band of cloud over the mainland heads from Western Australia across the north and down over the southeast of the nation. Colder air sits over the Bight. Tomorrow we have the swinging tail of the cold front over us as it also affects regions to the north. The large high slides over Western Australia. Winds will tend to head around to be south-southeasterly, lighter over the east coast and inland, but to 25 knots up the west coast with a 4-metre swell. Hobart 12 and a few showers tomorrow, 10 the high for Huonville, a shower for Campania, 12 the maximum. Launceston 13, foggy start, a shower or two clearing, 13 for Devonport, early fog for Georgetown, still a shower about and 13 there as well. 13 as well for Burnie, Strawn and Wynyard. And to the east coast, tomorrow we can see 13 degrees for St Helens as well, a shower or two, shower for Swansea and 13 and just 12 for Port Arthur. Now to the weekend, showers increasing over the north and extending statewide, patchy morning fog over the north as well. Possible showers over the west and far south on Sunday and also through Bass Strait. And on Monday, conditions clearing, morning fog and frost, but fine. Sunny and 18 in Perth, showers for Adelaide, Melbourne and Canberra, sunny in Sydney and rain at times in Brisbane. Cloudy in Hobart, 11 right now, 9 in Launceston, and in Devonport, cloudy and 9 degrees. The big game, of course, at Blunston Arena on the weekend, Kim. We've got North Melbourne up against the Gold Coast Suns. The big spectacle, though, will be our Premier up against Tony Cochrane of the Gold Coast Suns, the chairman there in the half-time goal-kicking contest. East Launceston champion played waffle for Swan Districts. I'll be backing our Premier in that one.
Good move. And can I also just point out that you're wearing Tom's tie. Forget your tie, did you, Murph? Tut, 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 tut. That does wrap up tonight's bulletin. Thanks for your company this evening. Good night.